Hey guys, Mrs. Bukaki here. This is a video for section 4.3 continued. We're looking at a harder example. Not too bad, but a little more difficult than the previous videos. So let's get started. I'm given two matrices, D and E. And this question is asking me to multiply D by itself and then multiply it by E. Now, because of these parentheses, order of operations tells me I have to start what's inside and then multiply that by the E. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, is this operation defined? And I know in the previous videos you talked about defining matrices as far as matching their dimensions. Well, luckily we have two 3x3 matrices, so we are good to go. Yes, it's defined and we can continue to solve. So let's get started. Okay, here again, my two matrices. I'm going to start with multiplying D by itself. These two matrices are D. And I want to take a look at the first row and the first column here. What I'm going to do is match up my corresponding parts, multiply them, and then add each. Okay, and that'll make more sense once you see it done. So I'm going to take these, multiply them to their corresponding parts here, and add them together. So let's get started. So I have a 1 times a 1 plus 2 times 0, or 0, plus negative 1 times 2, or a negative 2. Okay, so that takes care of our upper left hand number of our matrix. We're going to stick with our first row here and move on to column 2. Okay, so let's take a look. I have 1 times 2 is 2, plus 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 times a negative 1, which is just 1. And we're done there. Moving on to our third column here. Let's do the same process. So I have 1, still using my first row, 1 times a negative 1 is a negative 1, 2 times 1 plus 2, and negative 1 times a negative 2 is also plus 2. Okay, so we used our first column here, or our first row here rather, and we're done multiplying and adding our corresponding parts. So let's move on to the second row. And we're going to do the process over again. So I'm going to take a look at row 2 and then do the same process with column 1, column 2, and column 3. Okay, so I have 0 times 1, which is 0. I have 3 times 0, which is also 0. Oops, plus 0. And then I have a 1 times a 2, which is just plus 2. Okay, still sticking with my second row here. Let's move on to our second column. I have a 0 times a 2, which is just 0, plus I have a 3 times a 3, which is 9. Oops. And I have a 1 times a negative 1, which is just minus 1. Okay, second row still, moving on to our third column. 0 times negative 1 is 0. 3 times 1 is 3. And 1 times negative 2 is a minus 2. Okay, so last row here. I'm going to move down a little bit. And let's do the process again. So I'm going to take a look at this row versus all three of our columns. Okay, so I start off with a 2. 2 times 1 is 2, plus negative 1 times 0, which is 0, plus negative 2 times a 2, so a minus 4. Okay, moving on to our second column. I have 2 times a 2, which is 4, plus negative 1 times 3, negative 3, plus a negative 2 times a negative 1, which is just plus 2. Okay, let's see, still sticking with our last row here, last row, last column. So I have a 2 times a negative 1, negative 2. I have a negative 1 times a 1, minus 1. And then I have a, oops, get rid of that. I have a negative 2 times a negative 2, which is just plus 4. Okay, so that was D times D. Now let's add all these numbers together to get our matrix. Okay, so you have a 1 plus 0 minus 2 is a negative 1. You have 0 plus 0 plus 2. You have a 2 minus 4, negative 2. Okay, over here we have a 2 plus 6 plus 1 is 9. I have 9 minus 1 is 8. I have 4 minus 3 plus 2, which is 3. Last column here, negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 0 plus 3 minus 2 is just 1. And negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3, plus 4 is 1. Are we done yet? Nope. We have to take this matrix and now multiply it by E, which is up here. Okay. Okay, so I paused the video for a second just to copy down matrix E down here. Okay, so we're going to do this process all over again, multiplying D times D. This was our answer for that, and now taking it times E. So let's get started here. Okay, first row, first column, I have negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2, plus 9 times 1, plus 9, 3 times 3, plus 9 again. Okay, so that takes care of our top left number. Still sticking with the first row, I'm going to move on to the second column. Negative 1 times negative 5 is 5. 9 times 0 is 0. And 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, I didn't mean to use a different color, but it's okay. No worries. And sticking with our first row again, let's move on to our third column. Negative 1 times 0 is 0. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. And 3 times 1 is a 3. Okay. First row done. Let's look at the second row now. Same process, second row, and all 3 columns. Okay. So I have 2 times 2 is 4. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 2, I'm sorry, 8 times 1, 8, yes. And then 1 times 3 is a 3. Okay, second column, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 8 times 0 is 0. And 1 times 1 is just 1. Second row, third column, 2 times 0 is 0. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. Right here. And 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, one more to go. third row, and we'll multiply and add our columns. So I have negative 2 times a 2 is negative 4. 3 times 1 is 3. And 1 times 3 is also 3. Okay. Moving on to our second column here. I have a negative 2 times negative 5. That gives me 10. Plus 3 times 0, which is 0. Plus 1 times 1, which is 1. Okay, last column, last row, last column. Okay, negative 2 times 0 is 0. 3 times negative 2, negative 6. And 1 times 1 is just 1. Let's add all of our numbers together to get our final answer. Negative 2 plus 9 is 16. 4 plus 8 plus 3 is 15. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 5 plus 0 plus 3 is 8. Negative 10 plus 0 plus 1 is negative 9. 10 plus 0 plus 1, 11. Negative 18 plus 3 is negative 15. Negative 16 plus 1 is also negative 15. And negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. Okay, so this is a long process, but it's repetitive. And here's our final answer for D times D times E. And we're done with this video. Thanks, guys.